Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Something a bit different for this video. No gameplay, nothing to look at. Probably better suited for a podcast, but I'm working with what I got here. So enjoy the audio while you're driving, walking, doing some dishes. We're going to talk about Andor today, Disney Plus's Andor. In the interest of disclosure, I'll say that so far I've not been a fan of most of what Disney has put. With a few exceptions. Sorry, most of the Disney era for me has been a disappointment. Issues centering around redoing things the old trilogy has done. Dialogue writing that wasn't fantastic, or flat characters. In some cases, just being incompatible with the older movies. But there's parts, where I am a Star Wars fan. I do want to enjoy it. Definitely parts of Episode 8 and Rogue One that I really did enjoy and felt excited and thought they were telling really good stories, and parts of Obi-Wan, parts of The Mandalorian where I was happy and pleased. But it's really bothered me that a company the size of Disney has struggled with this. Like, it feels like they're trying too hard to make a Star Wars show instead of just making a good show that happens to be in the Star Wars universe. So when I look at shows like Jessica Jones or Daredevil or Arcane on Netflix, shows that are just damn good television, regardless of whether or not you know the IP or not, then I would get frustrated, right? Like, come on, get your act together. Or even with the movies, watching like how the Marvel movies aren't perfect. They are what they are, but at least they had a plan and they went through and then it came together. And I haven't seen that yet with Star Wars. So hopefully it improves. But the good news is, in my mind, I think Andor has really finally gotten it right. It was a little slow at the gate, but by episode 4, it really hits its stride. And it's a great show. It's got compelling characters, quality writing. It immerses the viewer in this Star Wars universe naturally, in a way that doesn't feel forced, which is good. So just going to break down this review into kind of 3 little sections: the good, the bad, and the virtualizable, since we are a channel dedicated to the Star Wars collectible card game. I do want to talk a little bit about what the PC or D&D could pull from this show and put into the card game. If you're watching this and you are not a fan of the card game, I encourage you to check it out. It is a little bit difficult to get into the physical game, but really easy to play online. Easy to play in that there's a good platform. The game has a steep learning curve, but it's a very rewarding strategy card game. And you can do anything in the card game that you could do in the movies, which is part of the fun part about it. So without further ado, there will be spoilers from here on out. If you've not watched Andor yet, stop the video, go watch Andor, come back in a couple weeks or 9 hours, depending on your time that you can commit to it. So we're going to start with the good. To me, a show is only as good as its characters. Plot is cheap, right? Plot's easy. Plot is never going to be the thing that makes or breaks the show, unless you straight up plagiarize your plot from your own film series, Force Awakens. sorry. But nuanced, interesting, flawed characters, that's what's going to make a good show. And part of it is the actors, for sure, bringing those characters to life. But a lot of it is on the writing, and how deep or complex are they? Do they have conflict pulling them in different directions, and how do they deal with it? And so there's some great characters in this show. Luthen as the damned soul who will do anything to break the oppression of the Empire and has to use these unbearable methods in order to have a chance of succeeding. Just kind of grappling with the fact that he knows, he's never going to be the one hailed as a hero. That speech he gives at episode 10 was just fantastic. And of course it helps that it's, still Skarsgård. doing it. But I think, just that character and what he wrestles with in the show is fantastic to see. On Mothma also, she wants to wants to build this rebellion, but she doesn't, approve of some of Luthen's methods, and she's kind of caught in this web where she's a little too deep and doesn't know how to get out, and she's out of her depth, and she's in a marriage that she's not really happy with, but she's trying to, keep connection with her daughter, and then now she's torn between family and rebellion, and it was good to see that play out. Even smaller character interactions like Sintis and Vel, they don't get as much screen time, but they still had that dynamic, that conflict of, they love each other, but Sintis is, a little more committed to the rebellion first, and Vel's a little more committed to their relationship first. So watching that play out was great. Another thing that I liked is the tone of the show. So in this era in the Star Wars universe, it is the Empire everywhere, oppression. They have that, long arm of the law, so to speak. And people that were acting out, would constantly be in fear. And so this fear, this tension, this worry about being caught, this hiding in plain sight. Often I feel like in the films, there hasn't been as much of that. The characters are kind of running around and, infiltrating bases, and, you don't get that feeling, they go somewhere and they're kind of safe until they get found. But that paranoia, it kind of felt like a Cold War era spy, that sort of stuff. So that was really cool. That they did a good job of capturing that idea, that feel of the rebellion in those ways. Like the scenes in the art dealership, speaking in code and stressed out about what happens if they get caught, and wondering who might be a spy, right? Is it the driver? Is it this person? Is it the other person? So very well done there. I also think that the writing gets a lot of the little details right. And for me, that adds a lot to the show. Fans notice the little things, and when little things are off, it really takes away. But, and it also like, viewers aren't stupid. They don't need to be, told, or it's not as interesting to be told things. So like the old writing adage, show don't tell, right? And I feel like in the past, Boba Fett was one of the worst examples of this, where they just like, everything was just like expository dialogue, just saying everything that happened and how people were feeling. And here, I think they do a lot more characterization through the little details, and they pull it off well. So, for example, Mon Mothma insisting that her husband called the driver by his name, right? There's that couple scenes. He has a name, and it just shows her like compassionate, considerate side for others. She's concerned about the well-being of others and how they feel, and she wants them to feel accepted. And so that little detail really adds a lot to her character. Episode 6, I think, the Eye, is the one where they're doing the heist and stealing the money, and you have Tamrin, the kind of ex-stormtrooper commando, calling out the march orders. And there's two times where he calls for a right turn, and the second time, the first time it's like very strong, very firm, in command, he's in control, he's comfortable. But the second time is when they're like just confirmed that the plan is going ahead, they're about to go into the facility, and he calls for a right turn and just gets this like crack in his voice. It's not nearly as commanding, and so you feel that nervousness that he has, right? Just heightens the tension. So those little things were great, I think. Another thing in the writing that I really enjoyed was the throwaway lines. So these are lines that They don't really have anything to do with the plot necessarily, but they just help to broaden the world and make you feel like you're in a fully fleshed out and lived in universe. They mention Hosnian Prime. Cassian talks to Skeen about the different gang tattoos that he has on his arms, right? And talks about different prisons that he's been in, and the names of the gangs, and mentioning worlds like Belsavis, or in ISB meetings, they're giving details on sectors that are not important to the story, but it just helps build that universe and in a natural way that's not forced. Couple other smaller things. The prison was neat, cool concept with the electrified floors. I thought that was interesting. The kind of competitions to get them to work and that sort of thing. It was really cool. They used that natural event, kind of like the Northern Lights style thing, to cover their escape. And I think those sorts of things really help build the universe too. Like, yeah, it's a big universe out there, right? There could be all sorts of natural phenomena, just spectacular looking. So it was a great visual scene, and a great world building scene as well. All right, the bad. I don't have too much bad to say about the show. Of course, there are things you can nitpick, but even in the most critically acclaimed, award-winning shows, there's always going to be things to nitpick. So I'm not going to worry about that too much. Some things that didn't feel quite as fleshed out as they could have been, like the last uprising on Ferrix. It felt a little bit rushed, as if it was just her speech that made people want to fight back against the Empire. Up until then, it felt like everybody was fairly chill. At least that's the impression that I got from it. So maybe a little bit more about their past. They talk a little bit about their past with the Empire, but you didn't get the feeling to me that tension was building to this uprising. It just kind of felt like, yeah, the Empire's there, everybody's chilling, and then the funeral happens and all of a sudden everybody's out in force. So maybe more of Imperials really trampling their rights, people getting upset, that sort of thing. Cassian, to me, didn't feel like he had a super strong motivation. At the beginning, he mentions he's looking for his sister, but then that never really comes up again in the show, which was weird, until his mom tells him to just drop it. It's just like an illusion. So maybe they could have focused on that a little bit more. He just seems like a selfish lone wolf, he's out for himself. He's trying to make some money and have a good time. And I guess that's good in a sense, because you do see the arc. You do see him go from this selfish thief to reluctant mercenary to full-on rebel. But again, what makes him join the rebellion ultimately is just revenge of what happened. But yeah, I don't know. He listens to the manifesto a little bit. But yeah, not that you can't be a rebel just for revenge. But earlier in the show, he has reasons to want revenge on the Empire, but he doesn't really. He's still not motivated to join a rebellion. I don't know. Maybe he sees that it can work. Maybe it's the prison. I'd have to think about it more. Maybe it's the prison stint, the turning, the working together, the we can't overcome. They can be beaten. Maybe that's what makes him want to join. So yeah, maybe that's not even a bad thing. Maybe that could go into the good. A couple things that I just personally am annoyed with. Why didn't they make Dedra's character Isard? Yusan Isard was a character in the EU. And I think for all those older fans who grew up in the EU, so my generation, I was, a kid just after the original trilogy had come out. And so the bulk of my Star Wars life was the EU, the books, the comics, the D6 role-playing game, West End games. And, Star Wars cards as well. So I think it would have been so easy. Just change your hair, change your eyes, keep the character exactly the same, dialogue the same, everything could be the same. And you even set her up to maybe take over as the coordinator in season 2, which it looks like that's kind of the way it's going. And they do this sometimes, like in the Obi-Wan show, they mention Quinlan Vos, who's an EU character. And so they seem willing to do it in certain cases. Thrawn was an EU character who has become very popular in the new Disney as well. So to me, it would just be, you would make the EU fans happy to have a little nod like that, and newer fans wouldn't know the difference, so it wouldn't matter. But that's just me. Not a big thing. Her character was good, a good actor as well for that one. And then lastly, the droids. I never understand this obsession with droids that Disney has. Like, Luke likes R2 because he's like this farm kid who's not around technology that much. That's not a normal thing. 99.9% of the galaxy, these are just like toasters. They are walking dishwashers. They are machines that do jobs. And they're not beloved. People don't treat them like pets. So I almost couldn't handle it in episode 11 when they're like consoling the droid. But hey, whatever. I mean, I know they make toys out of them, and people seem to like them. So it doesn't have to be in every show, though. In every movie, like, you can take a break, cool it with the droids a little bit. Maybe they could have a semi-intelligent flying lizard thing or something that is your pet, that if you want the cute toy thing in the show. All right, so lastly here, the virtualizable. What can the PC use from this series? I don't think the show is going to get its own like set or objectives or anything, because I think it does complement existing ideas really well already. Obviously, ISB operations is a card. You have tons of ISB characters in this, like Dedra and others, that could come in and create some diversity for the deck. I know I've heard people talk about the deck being not fun to play against, and so it's not good when it's at the top of the meta. So maybe take the opportunity to virtualize the objective and make it focused on information gathering and probing systems or something. I'm not sure. Just tweak it a little bit so that the interaction is not as just a flat drain penalty, so to speak. Some of the crew from the Aldani job might fit into a no idea deck really easily, so you could make some more smaller rebel dudes, some spies and scouts and stuff like that. Luthen and the Fondor, obviously popular choices, right? The ship might have some anti-tractor beam text, or Luthen could be some sort of spy information broker, maybe siphoning resources from the opponent. Maybe while he's in play, they activate one less, you activate one more, something like that. I think I'm trying to think of like events that stand out. The bank heist, obviously, so you could have some sort of like Imperial payroll Utini effect, like a Kessel run, where it deploys on their location, you send a guy there to do it. I guess you would want it to, I think you would want to build it to function around scrubs. You don't want like mains decks running it. So maybe some sort of effect that you have to draw under their forfeit, or over their forfeit. You have to draw Destiny over their forfeit, or Destiny over their ability. Something like that, or Destiny under their own Destiny number. I don't know. If you can find some way to make it more for the regular small character decks rather than the big lightsabers and main decks, I think that'd be good. And maybe you pull that off. It gives you some sort of resource advantage, activating force, or maybe like tutoring your deck for cars could be like an example of they're using that money to buy new starships or recruit new people to fight with. That would be a cool mechanic, I think. Maybe some sort of Imperial prison location. Lost characters go there, and the Empire player can activate more force based on the characters there, or spend characters there as if they are force. Rebels could go and free them by being there, or maybe they stack destiny there, like pod racing, and they get freed at a certain time. And then there's lots of systems that get mentioned that could provide options for space decks, different systems to visit, and different systems to go to. That would be cool. And I forgot I was going to look at the policy for dream cards and ideas, but feel free if the PC thinks any of those ideas are cool, you can take them, all yours. Go nuts. But yeah, that was Andor. On the whole, really good show. Watch it. Let me know what you think of the review, and let me know what you think of the show in the comments, right? Something that you liked, you didn't like, or that you think would make a good card. Thanks for tuning in, and we will catch everyone next time.